Hello, my lovelies. I'm Ginny O, the author with no last name, and this is Ginny O Talks, the part of the channel where I talk about things in the creative community. And today is Cookie and Cocoa Time with Ginny, and where I want to talk about point of view and my 3 guidelines on point of view. Now, what is point of view if you're an author? So the point of view is the kind of way you're telling your story. Who is telling your story and how far out and away from the story are you presenting it? So let's say you're telling it from you want to be right up there inside the story, inside a character's head, and the reader only knows what the character knows. So you're using the pronouns I. And that means you're a first person point of view. Versus, let's say that you've decided to pull back a bit and you want to, present the story from either a narrator that knows everything and is telling this story after the fact, like in The Hobbit, or if you're telling a story from really far away and you're doing it from multiple, you have access to everybody's heads and you know everything that's going on and there's no secrets from the reader, lots of exposition, that type of thing. That's third person point of view, and you'll be using pronouns like he, she, and they. Or maybe you're super experimental and you want the reader to feel kind of immersed in a jellyfish and gelatin of water where they're, directly doing the things, you're telling them what they're doing, and you're using the pronoun you, which is a lot of times used in things like choose your own adventure stories. So when you're in the writing community, or you're new to the writing community and you're looking for advice on point of view and how do I do point of view and what makes each point of view distinct and different and what is the best for my story, you're going to be bombarded with a lot of advice and a lot of contradictory definitions and a lot of people arguing with each other. So if you are looking for writing guidelines and stuff about this and you're like, you prefer visual stuff, you want something you can save on your computer and instead of listening to it in the background like you're probably doing with me right now, get thee to Tumblr. There is a lot of advice, guidelines. I like to call it guidelines, not advice, because it's not really rules, it's just what works for you, on Tumblr that is very, very helpful. So whether you're following the Literary Architect, the 960 writers, the Hey writers, the writers of color, the bibliosphere, you're going to eventually get, they like to reblog each other because that's how you get things to move about. In Tumblr, there's no algorithm. It is a user-created algorithm. So you'll eventually be finding lots of very good advice that's not quite so contradictory, but on Tumblr that you can pick and choose from to help you, figure out what you're doing. And a lot of these writing advice blogs have, ask boxes where if you ask them, they'll answer your question and also go back through their own archives because they usually have things tagged. Unlike me, I don't tag a lot of stuff. Where they'll just go through their tags and reblog this stuff again for you, which helps other people and helps the user-created algorithm. So if you're really, really in need of like non-judgmental writing guidelines, get thee to Tumblr. And I'm going to say, just the other day I was on Tumblr and there came this up in my cue from Hey Writers. They'd reblogged a post from somebody else, and it was called 25 Things I Learned in the 25 years I've been screenwriting. And it's like Writers Geek RHK or something like that. And 25 things through 25 years of screenwriting for TV. And I was just reading this advice and like, yes, this is really great guidelines advice. Just, thank you for reminding me. Thank you for refreshing my memory, like, about all this crap. So, you know, so things like that, like, get the atomic. But back to point of view. So when I talk about point of view, and when I'm working with point of view in my own stories, what I try to keep in mind is what type of point of view works best for the story I'm telling. So, for instance, you know, you're going to come across different genres, not marketing categories, because young adult is a marketing category, but different genres that use different points of view. So let's say you're writing a mystery or an urban fantasy, because that's just a mystery wrapped up in fantasy clothing. You're going to find in that genre a lot of first-person point of view. Whereas if you're writing romance, where, you know, I generally would like paranormal romance, so this might not be for every single romance subgenre, but a lot of times in romance, what you're seeing is a third person omni where they're switching between the points of view of the main female character and the main male character, or, you know, depending on what the type of relationship is, what the gender of the main characters are going to be, because the authors know that the readers want to know how each character is feeling, so they're going to tell you how each character is feeling and, you know, what's getting in the way of keeping them together. Or, you know, a lot of epic fantasy is more third-person omni, or, let me see, you know, the third-person limited is very popular, say, in like middle grade. So what point of view you decide to use is what type of point of view serves your story best. How much information are you trying to keep from the people, from your readers? Is your narrator reliable or unreliable? You know, what type of story is going on? And that's how you need to choose your point of view. Don't try to choose a point of view because you think it's popular or you think it's marketable or whatever. You know, choose a point of view that serves your story, okay? Or I tend to write, personally, either in third omni or third limited. And if I'm writing third limited, that means there's some sort of mystery involved, that the character doesn't know things, and I have to, you know, because I don't want you to know things, I want you to discover things along with the character. That's the beauty of third limited. But if it's third omni, for me, it's because I'm writing this story with a lot of people in it. Like, the Lone Prospect, that's an ensemble story. And if I stick to one head, there's just so much of the story and so much of the drama and so much of what's going on that you're just gonna miss. That if I just stuck with, you know, just if I was pretending it was really a romance and just stuck with Gideon and Savannah, like, no, you can't do that, sorry. It's a very slow burn romance. I don't want to do that, because to me, it's more like the Sons of Anarchy drama TV show, so there's more people than just Savannah and Gideon, you know, so it's got to serve your story. So once you get past, you know, the arguments over what is third omni really and what is third limited really, and, you know, nobody can agree, there's just what serves your story best. And, you know, then we get into my 3 guidelines. I'm thinking, Jenny, shouldn't that be a guideline? No, that's just me going, just choose whichever point of view serves your story. That's not, you know, really a rule or advice or guideline. I don't know. It's just choose what serves your story best. I'm not going to say, you know, unless you ask me for editing advice, I'm not going to say like what. There is no best point of view. There's the point of view that works for your story and that your readers like. That's it. I mean, I've read great stories in first person, and I've read great stories in third person limited, and I've read great stories in third person omni. I'm not gonna sit here and be like, ah, you must write this. No, write what's best for your story. So, guideline number 1. Thou shalt be clear. Okay, let me put it over here. Thou shalt be clear. So what does this mean? So you need to be clear on who is thinking. This is kind of like dialogue. You need to be, clear so that the reader doesn't get confused. And how do we do this? Okay, the easiest way to make things clear for your readers is to kind of treat your thoughts, who is thinking, who is looking out of the page, just like dialogue. You move things to a different paragraph. You wouldn't put 2 people talking on the same line. So you don't want to put 2 people thinking in the same line, in the same paragraph, because that would confuse your readers. So you change points of view by moving it to another paragraph, or by changing the scene, or by changing the chapter. And you can also give headers if you're doing first person, for instance, or limited third. You could create chapters with chapter headings over who is thinking. The biggest thing is, if you want it to be clear so your readers don't get confused. I really wanted to make that guideline, thou shalt not confuse the reader, but I'm trying to Fred Rogers this and try to keep things positive, so thou shalt keep things clear, okay? So keep it clear by moving it to a new paragraph, or by moving it to a new scene, or by moving it to a new chapter when you change the point of view. That way, the reader is not confused. Guideline number 2. Gotta remember which freehand to use. Thou shalt be voicey. Okay, so what do we mean by voicey? I mean, we've been talking about point of view. So the voicey is your character. What is their personality? How do they think? What makes them important? What makes them not boring? Okay? If there's a guideline that you should take to heart, it should be thou shalt not be boring. But don't be boring. Your characters, every single character that you have, that you're working with in your story, needs to be in there for some type of purpose. Either they're there to, explain certain events, or they're there to be they complement the main character, or they stand apart from the main character, or they're opposed to the main character. Whether that's, sides, or personalities, or, even the way they talk, each character should have kind of like this slightly distinct and interesting way of either thinking, or of doing things, or, having separate kind of quirks and stuff. And when you're writing, I know this is hard, because you don't want your characters and people to be fiddling. It can, if you do too much, too much physical stuff, they feel all jerky and fiddly and everybody's got ADHD. But if you do too much thinking sometimes, or, stage direction, it can slow your pacing down too much, and, or too much exposition, then your story gets way too slow. So it is a balance, but the main thing is when you're switching from a point of view, there needs to be kind of like this reason for it, and the characters need to be, you know, interesting and separate from each other. You know, they need to have different flaws, or one needs to be charming, and one needs to be abrasive, and one needs to be introverted, and one needs to be slow. It's the seven dwarfs. Happy, dopey, dark, sleepy, grumpy. They were all different, and you know, so they were distinct from each other, even though they were all male dwarves. Okay, so thou shalt be voicey. Okay. And the last guideline is thou shalt provide setup. What do I mean? What do you mean you need to have setup? Okay, you need to transition between your points of view. There needs to be a reason why we're switching to the other character, or switching to another place in the world entirely, and you need to set this up in the last part of the previous point of view, whether it's through a question, some sort of hook. You have to transition. Please, transition to give us a reason why it's important that we go visit the head of this other character. It's kind of like, it's cliffhangers, it's hooks, if that's the way you want to put it. It's setting up a question and then answering it with the other character. It provides a transition, so we go back to number 1, thou shalt be clear. And the transition, you know, can be just like a little question at the end of a previous paragraph, or it can be an entire paragraph. In Thea Harrison's Dragonbound, this is something that stuck out in my head when I was thinking about this, was she is writing in third person, and she's kind of writing in third person omni. And you're going, well, don't you mean third person limited? No, I really mean third person omni. You know, she's writing in third person omni, and she has the two main characters, and she's going back and forth between their points of view. She doesn't have headers, she doesn't, you know, sometimes she uses scene breaks, but sometimes she uses a transitioning paragraph. So in the books, they're out in the wilderness, they're on the run, and they've just done some exhausting physical activity, and he has decided to take the time to finger comb her hair. So the scene starts, you know, or, well, it's the middle, but the scene is going from her point of view, you know, how tired she is, how good it feels for him to run his fingers through her hair, you know, he's being gentle and stuff like that. And it goes to a paragraph of him working his fingers through her hair and getting the knots out, to a paragraph of how he feels about her hair, how he likes the feel of it and the color of it, and he's being very possessive about her hair because he just likes her hair. Some men like hair, okay? He's one of the men who like hair. He likes playing with it. He likes the feel of it. He wants, you know, to wear a bracelet of it. He likes brushing it, that type of thing. So that's the type of person he is. And so this transitioning paragraph helps the reader, guides the reader from her head over to what he's doing to his head in a smooth manner, so it's clear who's thinking, and it's set up as to why we've moved over to, you know, what he's thinking about her hair. Now, she owes him, she stole from him, and he's like, you owe me, and, you know, it kind of moves into the fact that he wants a braid of her hair to wear around his wrist, so that, you know, as part of what she owes him. If she gives him a lock of hair, he'll forgive her. Okay. It's a romance book, you're just gonna have to deal with the weirdness of it all, okay? He's a dragon, she's Well, I don't want to spoil it. He's a dragon. She's something else. It's fantasy. It's paranormal romance. So, but that kind of transitioning paragraph keeps it clear and it gives us a reason why of we're moving over to him now. But, you know, just set things up. All right. So, when you're working with a point of view, choose the one that's best for your story. I don't care which one you use. You know, just as long as it's the one that serves your story the best, and you know you like it, and your readers like it, and makes you happy. That's the point of view you want to use. But 3 guidelines: be clear about who is thinking. Be clear about it. Make sure those who are thinking or have interesting, important characterizations, that they're voicey, that they're full-fledged, juicy characters that people can sink their teeth into. And characterization would be another video, but give them interesting thoughts and interesting personalities, and the way they move, and provide setup, transitions, and the reasons why we're moving between these points of view, if you end up moving between points of view, so that the story has good flow and the characters and the readers aren't confused and things are clear. Always going back to number 1. Don't know why that is. So those are my 3 basic guidelines about point of view, and if you can keep those in mind while you're writing, your story can be really, really interesting, no matter if it's in first point of view or third person point of view or third limited, third omni, second. It's just important that you be clear, that you be interesting, and that you provide those setups to create good story flow. To keep your pacing and your movement going forward, okay? So, thank you for listening. Take care of yourselves. Bless. All right, and before you asked, what is this green stone? You've probably been seeing this green stone. This is a Mount St. Helens stone. It's made out of ash from Mount St. Helens, and there's not actually a lot of these stones left out there. So I was very lucky to get it when I did, and it's been set in a wire wrap by Fowler's, F-O-W-L-E-R-S, wire wrapping, some friends of the family, and I just wanted to be clear that you're probably going, wait, is that bright green stone? Is it like glass or something? Yes, it is kind of like a glass, but it's made out of the ashes of Mount St. Helens. And before we go, so yeah, thank you for listening. Take care of yourselves. Bless. Stay safe, and I will see you in the next video.